Hello, and welcome back to the weekly astrology podcast, where every Thursday we light our candles, grab our blankets, get cozy, and talk all things cosmos. I'm your host, astrologer and coach, Sarah Paasch. And today's episode brings us to the final lunar phase, the third quarter lunar phase of that Sagittarius new moon that happened in December of 2025. And also, welcome into 2026. Hopefully, by this point, after that Cancer full moon, getting into the astrology of this next week, I hope that you feel a sense of hope and a strong conviction in what it is that you're saying yes to and saying no to. It's definitely a week of free will astrology. And we're going to get into more of what that means as we get into the astrology for the week ahead. So go ahead, grab your blankets and get cozy. And if you haven't already, you can go ahead, you can hit the like button for me. It helps me, it helps the channel so much. You can also subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on. That way you're never going to miss when a new episode comes out. And just a reminder that if you haven't already, you can check out the Living Chartwork Level 1 program. It's a small group astrology mentorship program, very hands-on, immersive. We only allow 13 people max per cohort and small group. And it's not just about getting to know your own astrology, it's also creating connections, creating networks, new networks, which is so alive right now with everything that this astrology is talking about. And if you're somebody who's looking for a little help in navigating not just where you're going and how the transits are going to be impacting you personally, but also getting in a greater resonance and trust of your own inner compass, the inner compass of your own natal chart and natal planets. So we go very, very deep and thoroughly hands-on, like I said, into all of your natal planets. And we do this together. So you'll learn about your planets, and you're also going to learn through listening to other people and their charts and their stories. So it's very intimate. And those cohorts are going to start the week after this January new moon. And I'll be co-hosting this program with my astro bestie, Alexandra Blair of 9 Lives Astrology. Her and I have such an incredible compatibility. Our synastry has a lot of full moon oppositions in the charts, which really create this incredibly balanced container for the program and the work that we do together. If you want to know more about enrollment or about the syllabus, we have week by week details of what's covered in the program. All of that's going to be included in what's linked below this episode. So be sure to check that out. And we're just so excited to meet all of you that are going to be joining us in our next cohorts. With that, let's go ahead. I've got my notes here and I'm ready to dive into the astrology for the week of January 10th through January 17th. So the image of this week, or the theme that I'm going to be using for these transits, is hinge and locked in. And so I want you to imagine, follow me here, give me a second. There's a doorway, and the hinges of this doorway are going to determine how the doors close behind us and the doors open in front of us. So a lot of the future is going to hinge on our decisions that we make with conviction. Like I said, we're going to use that cap energy, hopefully. And that's going to not only lock us into place for where it is that we're going, but it's also going to shut the door behind us. So this astrology in the beginning of 2026, leading up to this Capricorn new moon on January 18th, this is definitely a moment to take yourself and your decisions really seriously. It's like the show's about to start and you have the free will to choose where you want to sit and who you want to sit next to. It's a matter of getting really clear on not letting old patterns, especially when it comes to relationships, drive you in any of your decision making, that you're really making it from this coherent and sovereign place of where you want to be sitting, how you want to enjoy the next part, the next chapters of the future and the beginning of this 2026. And also just a reminder, if you missed it, we had that 2026 year ahead overview. It was me, Alexandra Blair of 9 Lives Astrology, and Whitney Kranz of Astro Arcana, your astro bestie. So that is still for sale. It's a digital download. It has over 4 hours of our recording. And then also the companion workbook, which is over 61 pages. So it's not too late. If you haven't already, you can check that out. Everything's going to be linked below this episode. On Saturday, January 10th, we're going to have the moon in Libra, so officially hitting the third quarter lunar phase. Reminder that this lunar phase is all about the clarity that came to a climax at the full moon moment in the cycle. Now we reach this turning point, the waning, darkening side of the moon, where that clarity needs to find resolution through choice, through discernment, through bringing things to completion, and oftentimes letting things go. So it's a matter of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but also being really clear on cutting away anything that does not serve our future growth and where we're going. This astrology is this no point of return. It is say it, mean it, do it kind of vibe. So on Friday, January 9th, we're going to have Mars make the synodic cycle renewal, the Cazimi in conjunction with the Sun in Capricorn. This is the final of the personal planets that are going to be starting these cycles in the sign of Capricorn. The Sun is still going to make that conjunction to Mercury, but that's going to be nearly exactly conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. So we're going to get to that in next week's episode, but for now, we have Venus, who has completed her synodic cycle renewal, her Cazimi with the Sun, and that's all about Venusian cycles getting a reset, getting a renewal, and coming to this place, a full circle moment of things that were started years ago, the work that we've been pouring in, the lessons we've been learning when it comes to our relationships. The last time that we had Venus make a conjunction to the Sun in the sign of Capricorn was when Venus was retrograde in January of 2022. And now Venus is making that superior conjunction. She's as far away from us and on the other side of the Sun at this point in her cycle. And this is when she's about to be reborn or renewed as the evening star. So there's a maturity that's implied with this phase, or this face, shall we say, of Venus in her cycle. And that means that we're coming to really clear decision points on what it is and who it is, especially, that we're committing to. What about our exchanges is up-leveling or going through this value cut, so to speak. And unlike the Venus retrograde cycles and that flower pattern where Venus is always retrograding somewhat in the same place of the zodiac every 8 years, Mars is actually a 30-year cycle. So we have not had Mars conjunct the Sun in the sign of Capricorn for 30 years. This is a major beginning point for all things Mars. Mars has to do with where we devote our energy and our effort. Mars is the fight in all of us, our ambition, our willpower, our drive, our desire. It has to do with our self-assertion, so our right to assert and advocate, to take up space in our lives. Our yeses come with a firm and sovereign no guarding them, right? So this week, it's all about getting really clear on your yeses and nos and what you're no longer going, like there's this no going back feeling when it comes to our energy, our effort, and our input into anything we're putting into the future. And the fact that Venus and Mars are pretty much side by side starting these cycles together, it tells us that this is definitely having a relational layer, a relational component. So it's almost like right now we're all kind of sitting in the seat of discernment of what it is that we're saying yes to, who we're committing to, and kind of vetting our options. It could be really sexy, it could be really fun, or this can also be, honestly, a really heavy moment, because sometimes when we get really clear on what it is that we want, that usually means that we get really clear and honest about what it is that we don't want or what it's time to say goodbye to. So you might be noticing around this time and in the last couple of weeks of January, there's probably going to be a lot of endings. There's probably going to be a lot of goodbyes. And it's all hopefully in service to what it is that you're opening yourself up to, the possibility of what could come next or who could come next, and the standard or the level of those exchanges, those potential exchanges. Also on Saturday, we're going to have the Sun and Mars in Capricorn opposing Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. So this is going to highlight any sort of polarities of extreme around Jupiter, showing us maybe the lessons of emotional over-giving or acting from an extreme emotionally feeling or vulnerable place, maybe the Mars severing of ties or the setting of boundaries, where you might be seeing both sides really clearly now of the equation surrounding what it is that you're saying yes to or no to, like the things that you're bringing to a close or the things that you're getting excited to begin or renew. And so on Saturday, this is a hinge moment. This is the moment where you can't deny what you know, what you've learned, what you've felt and been through. And it's time to take all the emotional clarity on Saturday and put it into action. And also find some sort of Capricornian ability to overcome the emotional pull of maybe old patterns or maybe the grief of the endings. This is about really getting into boss mode and saying, okay, these are the structural changes that I need to put into place. This is the time to take yourself really seriously. And part of that is having this emotional containment or emotional maturity where you're able to pull back the influence of those really big feelings, and you're able to overcome the gravitational pull of old patterns. So we can implement new patterns. You can interrupt and insert or reprogram through action, through choice. Saturday is definitely saying that we are not fucking around anymore. You have to take yourself seriously. You have to put your action where your heart and mind have led you to this point. So that kind of carries us through the weekend. That's the weekend's energy. It's definitely not a time to overextend yourself. It's definitely a great moment to wake up to the patterns of maybe overextending yourself and to rein yourself back in, come back to the intentions you're setting with that new Mars cycle and with the sovereignty with yourself of which direction you're going and why. We're going to get from that first hinge moment and a little bit of structural reality checking. Then once we get through the weekend, starting on Wednesday, January 14th, we have the moon in its balsamic phase in Sagittarius. And on this day, now Mercury, our messenger, crosses the territory of the Sun-Mars opposition to Jupiter. Now Mercury in Capricorn opposes Jupiter retrograde in Cancer at 19 degrees. And so now we're starting to turn the hinge. We're starting to have a narrative correction. We're clarifying meaning, and we're starting to determine where the hinges are being bolted and placed and the direction, the movement of that door. Now, after implementing those new patterns or maybe setting those boundaries or creating those endings, now Mercury is going to give a little bit of truth bomb energy. And that might be hard to accept because that might mean that you have to accept that you were inflating a truth that you didn't want to admit in order to position yourself in the narrative in a way that you preferred. It could also mean that there's some really difficult conversations that reveal truth about a dynamic or a situation. Let's say you do something different over the weekend or you set a boundary in a new way. It might be that this opposition between Mercury and Jupiter reveals who's going to be coming with you and who's not. So are people meeting you where you're currently at? Are the conversations and the communication feeling balanced? Or are you noticing that there's this invitation into the old patterns, into the old overextending of yourself, overgiving? So this is definitely a day to let the truth hit, let it feel heavy if it needs to. Maybe there's some things you decide to no longer give any effort through, not even talking about it, not even giving it a discussion point. And that's honestly when and how that door is actually going to start to move. So the hinges of the door start moving on Wednesday. And then later on Wednesday, we're going to have Venus in Capricorn start the outer planet activation. So Venus is going to start with that sextile to Saturn in Pisces at 27 degrees on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, January 15th, that's when we have Venus in Capricorn trine Uranus retrograde in Taurus at 27 degrees, which if you remember in 2025, Venus retrograde did this continuously. Venus was in the sign of Aries and Pisces, and that retrograde continued to go back and forth a total of 3 times, connecting that Saturn-Uranus sextile. So even think back, like back to the last time we had the Venus retrograde, back into March and April of 2025 and the relationship reckoning that was happening. And how do you have this full circle moment where maybe all of the tough decisions, tough endings, tough calls, right? Now you get to be rewarded. You get to see this full circle moment, this maybe match of maturity of the other people that you might be calling in or the contracts and the exchanges. This could also be an incredibly productive and creative time. It just feels like Venus is ready to get involved, ready to get into action and get her heart and hands creatively messy into the future, into building something of value into the future. And also, this is definitely a reality check, integrity check, and a reward. One of those rewards for the choices we've been making. Venus is saying, if you're willing to put your integrity over your attachments, or maybe your old attachment patterning that might be pulling you back into unhealthy, old lessons learned dynamics when it comes to exchanges with others and value, pleasure, desire body, like what have you learned? You have grown, you are on the other side of something. Remember, it's this mature Venus that's now activating these outer planets. And she wants to build something of value. She wants to build something real. So there's the cuts we've been making. Now we get to see, hopefully, a little preview of what value comes out of that. When we clear that space, what gets to come in? So who are you inviting in? Who are you noticing is coming into your field or maybe returning in a new way that matches, like you guys both have been doing your work and doing your journey, and now you come back together and you're both standing at a totally different threshold. So partnerships are going to be coming together. People are going to be getting their seats next to you. It's a resonance. It's a magnetism. It's happening just by you being in your sovereign, coherent self with your decisions and discernment throughout this week, where you're getting the opportunity to choose what's real versus what's familiar. What's real to you now? Asking yourself, what is this new era, new you? You're standing in a new threshold. You're standing in a new year. We're about to move into completely new territory with these major outer planet shifts. And now Venus is getting this opportunity to really name and claim what is real and let go, make that third quarter lunar phase cut and discernment, release the old, the familiar, the no longer meeting you where you are. And that's not always easy, but don't forget, Saturn is the planet of free will. Saturn is a planet that rewards and gives consequence, real consequence, to our choices, to the repetition of our actions and our investments and our commitments. So how you show up right now, it matters. And it matters more than the approval or the validation of anybody outside of yourself. Can you trust yourself? Are you trusting yourself this week? And are you ready to really let the door close behind you? So this value cut moment, this is where the doors start to close. This is where things and people start to feel like they're just naturally resonating, attracting, magnetizing together. And don't forget, the beginning of this lunar cycle started with all of these planets making those terribly, frustratingly heavy, hard, confusing squares to Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. And now they're in Capricorn making these positive aspects. So that tells us whatever we were willing to hold with that Saturn sobriety and honesty and the maturity to put down what we are not taking with us in the future or who we are not going to be in partnership and committed to into the future. Now we come into the sextile aspect where it's bringing a sense of ease and synergy. There's a natural momentum that's happening where it's just naturally pushing everyone or bringing everyone into the place and the relationships and the people that we're going to need, that are going to be our ride or dies going into the future, our new teams, our new partners, our new friends, or maybe your romantic partners. So again, just make sure you're honoring what's real and what's true to you at this point, and let that be this powerful magnet of attraction to what you're capable or who you're capable of calling in for the chapters that come next. And then this lunar cycle actually officially ends on Saturday, January 17th. So it's going to bring us into the following week. There's a whole pileup of transits happening on the day just before the Capricorn New Moon. We've got Venus and Capricorn making the sextile to Neptune and Pisces at 29 degrees and then entering into Aquarius, moving towards that conjunction with Pluto. Won't happen yet though. And then we've got the Sun in Capricorn following the trail of Venus, making the sextile to Saturn and Pisces and the trine to Uranus and Taurus. And then we've also got the third in a series of 5 conjunctions between Mercury and Mars. So if you haven't already, there's a video on my channel where I did a focus topic on that 5 conjunction series between Mercury and Mars. We're in the midpoint of that series and that timeline between Mercury and Mars. And Mercury is the planet that says, say it, say what you mean. And Mars is the planet that says, do it, do what you say you mean. And in Capricorn, again, there's this boss mode approach to what you're doing. This is getting into that state of maturity and confidence and integrity. Like if you don't want something or you don't like something or it's not working for you, say it, mean it, do it. Let your actions speak louder than too many words. Sometimes we don't need to say anything. When we're silent and we just behave in a way that aligns with our choices and our commitments and our true sovereign, like what it is that we want and who we are, like what's real for us. When we do that and just act and show up, that speaks for itself. So Capricorn definitely teaches us how to let your actions speak for themselves, including your integrity, and not over-explaining yourself. And also this entire pileup of transits on Saturday, right before that new moon, this is the moment where we go from starting to get the hinge configured or set up between the doorway that started last Saturday. Now we're in a locked in position. Locked, loaded, ready to move forward. And there is this kind of no going back. There is this point of no return by the time we get to January 17th. And because the sun is starting and taking over the sextiles and trines to the outer planets that Venus just completed, now we're going from the relational standards and set points to our new plot lines and the coherence of this sense of self. So there might be this upgrade in how you're able to hold yourself, carry yourself, feel embodied in the decisions and the new beginnings or trajectories that you're on. There's a sense of getting a promotion, giving yourself a promotion maybe, of saying, yeah, I am the person who does this. I am the person who can go the distance. Like we're in Capricorn. This is about giving yourself the confidence and also the pep talk to say, yeah, I've learned a lot of lessons. I can trust myself. So this is all about coming into coherence of self-trust, self-identification, self-promotion as the one who's going to execute these new plans, these new futures, these new exciting possibilities And we're going to do it in a real way. We're going to take our time because it's Capricorn. And now all of the processing and grieving and ending and waking up and letting go that the Sagittarius lunar cycle has invited us into, the emotional clarity that has been undeniable. By the time we get to that Saturday, the 17th, everything is coming fully formed, locking into place. It has a cohesive set point, a start point. These new plot lines, there is this no going back. And now all of those previous points of clarity, those decision points that we had before, now decisions become our commitments. This is not easy astrology. It is gratifyingly clear right now. Everybody I've talked to, in my own personal life, every decision that I'm coming to, whether it's an ending, a point of closure, or a new beginning, the things I'm really ready and excited to invest myself into, it's not easy. Sometimes having clarity can feel really heavy because the truth and the discernment, just like Saturn, is heavy. It's a weight to carry because it's a sign of self-respect. And to be honest, this astrology, especially with the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026, while I know we're going to look back on this time, or at least I know I will, and I will be so proud of myself for the major completions, the major pattern shifts and integrations of the work that I've been doing for years and years and years. It reached this whole new standard, this whole new set point, but that's not easy, right? Like really resetting patterns, really coming into awareness and clarity and raising the value bar of your standards. And that means bringing a lot of things to a close, setting boundaries that you weren't setting before, releasing relationships or contracts. While you can be so clear and that can feel so good because you're so confident in that, you have no doubt, it can also be really heavy and it can be really hard. And I know that's something that I've been having to really balance how I hold myself through these moments and through this final transition before we get to that Capricorn New Moon, when we're really locked in and the space is totally cleared at this point. Our decisions, they're committed, they're locked in. We've signed the dotted lines. We've all taken our seat. The show is actually about to start. So this is the grand finale right before the grand opening, so to speak. And I just want to give you so much love and permission to honor whatever you're feeling, wherever you're at, and to know if you are somebody who's been feeling the weight, the gravity of this moment, of this last month and lunar cycle, you are not alone. And continue to show up and trust yourself. Continue to trust and invest your faith and your energy and your effort into moving that doorway forward into the future and letting it close behind you, leaving behind you what does not serve you. So that's all the astrology for this week. I'm curious, how are you feeling after the Cancer full moon? Did you watch your horoscope on my horoscope episode last Thursday? If you didn't, you should check it out. We've got the rising sign horoscopes, and I did an oracle card reading this time, which was kind of a fun shake-up, mix-up. That brings us to the end of the Sagittarius lunar cycle, that never-ending freaking lunar cycle. And it also brings us to the end of this episode. I'm so grateful that you were able to join me today. If you stayed on this long and you haven't already, please do me a solid, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on. That way you're never gonna miss when this new cozy cosmic episode comes out every Thursday. And next week, we're gonna get into that Capricorn New Moon, the official beginning of the year, it feels like, and the beginning of these new, not just year, but new eras, new you. Things are going to start to find their place. Things are going to start to take their form and their shape. And I'm really excited about this threshold that we're crossing. So I hope that you'll join me back here next week. Until then, I wish everyone so many end of the cycle blessings, so many blessings in whatever you're releasing. May you be filled with peace. May you be filled with trust and clarity in yourself. I'll see you next week.